At the beginning of November, we saw 5 children hit and killed during the matter of 3 days while they were loading and unloading from their school bus. That was due to drivers not stopping. Behind me is where an 11-year-old died as he was sleeping because his camper caught fire. Now, the one thing that officials say could have made a difference, he didn't have. Over 50 volunteers spent their weekend working on 3 houses for Habitat for Humanity. They will complete their 13th house by the end of this summer. Police Chief Jimmy Broussard says the victim was attending a double funeral today for murder victim 26-year-old Bryden Gray and his mother, who passed away only 2 days after her son. The Children's Museum of Acadiana has had the grocery store for 22 years, but as the museum director Carol McManus explains, it was time for a fresh look. A homegoing celebration for a murder victim and his mother during a double funeral was overshadowed by an attempted murder outside of the church.
I said to them, everybody bent down.
Bishop Aaron Wilson had just opened his Bible when shots were fired outside the Crowley First Baptist Church.
I heard 4 or 5 shots. Many more shots was going to be fired, so I did kept them down much as I could.
Police Chief Jimmy Broussard says the victim was attending a double funeral today for murder victim 26-year-old Bryden Gray and his mother, who passed away only 2 days after her son.
It is very sad because guess what? The family is already hurt, and I'm trying to comfort them, and with the shooting, it puts double pain on the family, also for the person that was shot. And I'm really, my heart goes out to them.
Bryden Gray was shot outside his home on the 700 block of Leslie Amos Street. Witnesses say the victim, who is in his 20s, was walking up and down the aisle at the funeral when he left through the front doors. 2 suspects opened fire.
The victim was shot multiple times.
The victim, who has not been identified, was also a witness when Gray was shot on October 28th. In Crowley, Katie Easter, KLFY News 10. Purses, wallets, and guns are reported stolen from the 9 vehicles that were broken into on Hacienda Street. Surveillance footage shows the 2 suspects attempting to check if another car is unlocked.
These people were trying to break into cars over there.
Shirley Edgerton lives 1 street away from the break-ins. She says it took them by surprise when they heard about it.
Our roommate had heard it on the Nextdoor app. We have a Nextdoor app that's set up for the Miramar subdivision.
Residents tell me that their neighborhood is quiet and safe, but car burglaries happen everywhere, and there's certain things you should do to prevent it from happening to you.
I urge all the residents around here to make sure your homes are secure and everyone's locking your doors, and don't make it easy for them, and everyone look out for each other.
Edgerton also tells me she isn't sure why their subdivision was targeted.
Pretty safe. It just seems like here recently we've been more of a target. I'm not sure why, but all the houses seem to be secure as far as systems and cameras on the doors and everything. The only reason I could see is that there's several entrances and exits.
In Milton, Katie Easter, KLFY News 10. Former Houston Astro player Earl Luckett visited Rain early Saturday to meet his biological family. After 52 years of not knowing he was adopted, the meeting was a complete shock.
I cried. I got on the phone, I cried, and I just called everybody.
52-year-old Earl Luckett grew up in Texas while his 5 siblings grew up in Rain.
I just recently found out that I was adopted, and so I'm meeting my brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, aunts. I'm meeting the whole family for the first time.
After discovering he was adopted, Luckett took action to quickly find his family.
When I recently found out through a funeral, and then when I got my records unsealed from the judge in Corpus Christi, that's what I just found out in October. So with that said, I mean, we've been talking and been meeting since then.
Luckett's mother passed away in 2006, but his father is alive and well. He says he had a feeling he had one more son.
His mama always said she had lost the baby. And I told my son, your dad brother or sister in youth. Time to find out, it come true. About 2-3 weeks ago, he talked to me every day. But he told me, yeah, I couldn't wait to see him. Yeah.
And although Earl missed 50 years of family time, he plans to see them as often as possible. Katie Easter, KLFY News 10. Ron Contour.
Cajun for a storyteller. When I was little, my grandmother would tell us stories about her life, and she spoke French, so when I wanted to name my writing service, I thought, what a better name to be an Acadiana than with this Cajun French word for storyteller.
23-year-old Olivia Savoy has a profession many may not know exists. ghostwriting, otherwise known as life story writer.
I say, you know, what was your earliest memory? And we just move on from there.
The idea came after helping a close relative.
My grandmother had tried to write her life story for as long as I could remember. She'd be writing and stacking papers everywhere and never could get it all to come together. So I wanted to help her do that. And I sat down with her for a few hours and then wrote her book within a few weeks.
Olivia thought she would go into journalism, but
so many great stories here in Acadiana in particular. So I wanted to get some of that history down on paper for the families to have.
And although the process can be extremely emotional,
just an honor for me to, to be trusted with that information. And it's a very special process to be able to write that life story.
From memoirs to love stories, Olivia says writing for people is something she wants to do forever. In Broussard, Katie Easter, KLFY News 10. A young father returns to Lafayette to run into a new world record. Yesterday, I met a couple of sensational citizens. 34-year-old Callum Neff is a two-time Guinness World Record holder.
And I pushed my eldest daughter, Alessandra, for a 2:31 marathon, which is a new world record, and my middle child, Holland, for a 1:11 half marathon, which was another Guinness World Record.
Saturday, he ran a 10K pushing his third child.
Today was just extra special because I ran this race 30 years ago and just wanted to bring my kids across to have a similar experience.
As the time passed, so did the world record. Neff missed it by a minute.
We ran into a really big headwind at halfway, and if anyone knows anything about strollers, it's like pushing a sail. So all the kids want to keep going, so I'll push them as long as they want to keep going with me.
And in Karen Crow, a 68-year-old Marine Vietnam veteran earned his black belt in Taekwondo.
All the years that you train for it, and you might not make it, and first thing you know, you're here.
What started as a hobby is now a passion.
I started at 65 with my grandson as a way to get in shape after retirement, and it just grew to I liked it so much.
Training hasn't always been easy for Ray.
I started getting some pains that most old people get, but I tried to work through them because there's some things you have to do in Taekwondo to be able to progress.
Something that most people never accomplish, because we always have the question asked, how long does it take for a person to get a black belt? And our answer to that is the average person never becomes a black belt.
Ray says even as a 70-year-old man, he will continue to challenge himself, train, and set new goals. In studio, Katie Easter, KLFY News 10. Tomatoes, squash, onions, and more can be seen growing behind the Southwest Louisiana Primary Health Care Center in Opelousas. Darren Lestraps came up with the idea.
As I was seeing patients, obesity and diabetes and hypertension is very prevalent here in South Louisiana, and I needed to do something. I needed my patients to be more active. They need to eat better. But because of the cost of food, they weren't able to eat as good as we wanted them to. So I wanted to show them how they can grow their own vegetables.
Retired NFL player Lloyd Mumford says working in a garden like this every day is beneficial in multiple ways.
And I plant, it keeps me doing something, and then I have to think about, what I'm doing, and, I don't plan to stop. So I'm gonna keep going and going until, when I stop, I'm gonna be in the grave.
This is the first garden of its kind.
I think one of the only ones in the area that's doing this. And what we're trying to do we're trying to be the leaders in this. So I want to be able to go out and show all of the other FQHCs how we're doing this, how to do it, how they can do this. Because it's initially a little strenuous to get going, but it's easy once you have it.
Strap says the garden is not just for patients, but the community.
It's not just for the patients that we see, it's for everyone. Anyone in the city of Opelousas, St. Landry Parish, the parishes that we serve are welcome to come. We will give vegetables out to them.
Straps hopes the garden will leave a major impact on the community. In Opelousas, Katie Easter, KLFY News 10.